where you are, who's coaching you, then you can't get better. Not like the coach think you can get better. Some guys think that they're at their best already and don't want to get better. But I think these kids wanted to get better, so they took coaching.
Your list is long about guys that you've coached in the NFL. Where does a guy like Sweat stand?
Sweat has a lot of potential. I mean, he reminds me of some of the guys I've coached in the past that did have a chance to play in the NFL. And he's eager to learn. You know, he's working hard. If he continues to do that, you know, freshman to sophomore year means a lot. So after this season, as a sophomore, if you see vast improvements, then he's probably on his way. If not, then he's probably got to struggle to find his way.
And how much does he really understand where to go and what to do? Randy said that's a little bit of a problem, just part of being a freshman.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you know, your offense is moving pretty fast. You know, if we were a little bit slower in the huddle, more verbal communication than signal communication, it'd probably be easier for him. So it's a little fast, but, you know, I would say he's about 80% there.
He seems like a kid who's soft-spoken and kind of humble, and as you said, eager to learn, and maybe has the demeanor of a guy who has a lot of those intangibles where he can get a lot better as he gets older. I
think so, and sometimes with a little success, it goes to guys' heads and they totally change. So hopefully he doesn't change as a person. Hopefully he doesn't change as a player. He wants to continue to get better, continue to be coached. If that's the case, then the sky's the limit. But I've seen guys like him go just the opposite direction before as well. So it's depending on how he does after this season.
What are his attributes that tell you that he's got a chance, if he continues to improve, to be one of those guys that you've talked about and you coach?
He's got natural instincts. He can do some things that doesn't require coaching, to be honest with you. He can come in and out of cuts. He's got really, really good, solid, strong hands. You know, he can really run well. He understands leverage. So there's a lot of things that he understands already that he really doesn't quite know how to incorporate in his game, really, at this point that I've seen. I think, boy, once he understands what he can really do, man, he can be dynamic.
What's the difference in coaching a guy like that who clearly has a lot of talent that needs to learn some of the fundamentals versus a guy who might be really fundamentally sound but just doesn't have the talent that he does?
They're equally, I'm trying to use the right words. They're the same, but yet they're different. You know what I mean? The guys that has a lot of talent, but yet it's kind of raw, they're fun to coach, particularly if they want to learn. I mean, they're really fun to coach. And you can see improvements. Every time you go on the field, you see something different. And every now and then you watch the tape and you go, whew, I didn't coach that. and then guys who are fundamentally sound, they're fun to coach too, because you can take their fundamentals and you can incorporate some things that and they'll take it and they'll just eat it up. They just absorb it, and they get better and better from a fundamental standpoint.
There's been a lot of talk about the deep passing game and how it's kind of hard to get receivers a lot of work with that, considering how much you run them in practice. Anyway, what's the key to maybe getting those down?
It's a technique thing. We work on it all the time. I mean, it's just a matter of finding the right opportunities to get it done. We work on it all the time, and it could happen this week. Who knows? I hope it does. But if it doesn't, I'm not going to be overly concerned because I know it will happen, no doubt.
To use a basketball analogy, we hear John Calipari say all the time, this kid has no idea how good he can be. Is DeMarcus one of those guys, and is it difficult in some ways to coach it, to convince a kid that's that talented that, man, you're really good? I mean, if you work, if you do all the things that we're asking you to do, and you've got a future in this game.
Well, I mean, everybody's coaching style is different. From mine, I don't want him to think he really is that good. I want him to think that he is the worst of the worst. And he's trying to get better every single day, and he's fighting to get better every single day. And if I can keep that in his head, maybe his head won't blow up. All of a sudden he does something good and he thinks, okay, I've reached that point that Coach is talking about. Now I don't have to work anymore. That's when you start going downhill. You guys, y'all been around enough. You've seen really good players that everybody talked about, and 4 years later you go, whatever happened to that guy?
Right.
And something along the way just did not work out for him. Sometimes it's the system, and sometimes it's him. It just depends.
What's happened to Darryl Collins since the Louisville game, you think?
I'm going to tell you again?
What's happened to Darryl Collins since the Louisville game, do you think?
What happened to him?
Is he doing anything different? Or, he had such a dynamic game against Louisville, and then he kind of disappeared a little bit.
He hasn't really disappeared. The system, we're going to throw the ball to people that open from first progression to third progression. If he's open, if he's the first progression, we're going to throw it. If not, we're going to throw it to someone else. So nothing really has happened to him.
You probably already talked about Sweat, but just talk about his.
I'm not talking no more about it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, last time I said something, I said that's the last word I'm going to talk about, that Sweat kid. Absolutely.